the next video. Here's the next video in the trauma series, which is all happening in real time. So, because it's for me, but it's also, I'm just trying to sort of document, how it sort of moves through, because there's like these waves. Um, so as far as like for me, like I think it's going to be different, obviously, for everybody else, but for me, uh, I think it was 3 days ago, or it might be 4 days ago, when the actual trauma experience happened. It's very hard to know. See, a sense of time just really becomes very disoriented. A lot of things, you feel very disoriented. Like the initial experience is just total disorientation. You just can't quite, yeah. You put things in really strange places. You can't remember the names of things. Like, it's just everything becomes very disoriented. But so now we're a few days after the event. So what's happened is, I've really settled myself down a lot. I still, I still had a panic attack yesterday morning. Took Mushka outside for a walk, and he I swear to God, like it's like they do this to test you, but he went and he just sat at, because he was at a bit of a distance, and he went to the base of this like a twin tree. The tree that fell on me went this way, and there's a tree that's still standing, the same size, a massive tree, and they share the same root system. So the other tree, it's got to come down, like, it will either fall down of its own volition, or else Pete will be lopping it down, like, as soon as he can. It's not going to fall on anything as long as nobody's there. But anyway, so Mushka went to the base of this tree, and he was ready to start, walking around it, and, in the direction of where it might fall and everything. And I totally freaked out and panicked, like, I just was like, Roshka! Like, I never get angry at him, but I was just like, I just had this fierce, like, do not do that. And, he just sat there, like, like, okay, I won't go anywhere, I promise. He just sat, very still and waited for me. I had to run and get him and take him away, and then just total panic attack. It took, oh man, it lasted for about 2 hours. Like, luckily I just found a couple of people who could just sit with me until I got my act together. Like, and and even though I say 2 hours, like, the really distinct, absolute panic of it was 2 hours, but, the stress hormone response was still going, and luckily a friend came up, and we just had a beautiful healing day. I just showed her all of the carnage, but then we just went down to the beautiful Sirens pool and swam there. Like, there's just the most gorgeous pool, waterhole on this land. It's waterfall. It's just like something out of fairyland. It is so beautiful. But anyway, we just had a beautiful day together, and, there in the pool, and the picking herbs in the gardens and smelling them, and gathering, and just nurturing, very, very nurturing. And, by the end of the day, I'd just forgotten. It was just, all the troubles was so far behind. It was just really, really, it just helps. It helps. It's one thing, it really helps to just take yourself, out of the scene. And initially it's actually very hard to do. Like, in my case, I have to stay present in here for a couple of weeks, which is okay, because, I'm working very steadily and slowly through things, one by one. And yeah, I'll take my time doing it as well, because I do have to sort of honour the process. Let's turn the get Mushka in there. It's my boy. So anyway, in this video, I just wanted to sort of just talk about like the waves that come and go. And no, that's my cup. So what happens is, just like, you know, when there's an earthquake or a tidal wave or whatever, you know, there's the initial impact, you know, the impact that what you call the trauma event. And then afterwards, you know, there's some smaller waves that come through. Let's say if it was a tsunami or whatever, and, you know, up they go, down they go, you know, there's sort of all aftershocks, whatever you want to call it. Like, there's just in nature, you know, you see that playing out. And that's what happens with us too. So, you know, initially it's just the crash and the complete shock, and you're just in permanent, total, not permanent, but sustained trauma response. And then, you know, you start to get this ebbing away, and then, you know, another panic will come up and away it drops again. But it's, you know, it just gradually begins to sort of just even out. You know, occasionally you get a quick, you know, an aftershock, but like they're the panic attacks. But, you know, really it just all begins to even out. And I think it's just really, you know, I'm finding it's really important to really balance myself throughout it. So, you know, I don't want to get, there's a feeling now, like, you know, this, like, where I know in the past I probably would have been sinking into depression, and I can feel a kind of depression, but I don't feel, I know I'm not going to get bound by that. Like, I'm just feeling like, okay, this is kind of a natural after effect, because, you know, it was just, if you look at it from the physical hormonal place, it was just pure cortisol release, you know, like all my stress hormones just all activated, being released for days. And then, you know, constant, you know, aftershocks of these releases happening. So my body's quite depleted of, you know, the natural hormonal balance. So it's the same with all the bodies, you know, with my emotional body. It's been very heightened as well, you know, I've been very on edge, you know, either anxious when I'm in sort of situations that I perceive as dangerous, but some potentially are, but others aren't. There's just the mind telling me there's something dangerous here, but it's not really. Like a tree, you know, just a tree, not the tree that is going to fall, but another tree, and I just kind of freak out. So I'm slowly healing that. But so, you know, there's kind of like some anxiety sometimes. There's the grief. Sometimes, you know, even some anger comes up. But yeah, so it does begin to just ebb off. And also what also happens is you begin to notice that the people around you, like initially everyone comes in and they have this, you know, really, you know, they're totally available for you 100% all of the time and everything. But because, you know, after the immediate event, but then, you know, the reality is, you know, everything starts to even off for you, and also everyone else's lives, you know, they need to get back to some semblance of their own lives. So, you know, they're not like 100% available anymore, depending on what your relationship is with them. So there's kind of like a, you know, just a letting people go to, you know, their lives. You know, they've got to maintain their lives. You can't expect people to sort of, you know, just be 100% available to you, you know, all of the time. And I've learned to, you know, when I have been through either trauma experiences or an actual PTSD episode, which, yeah, more in the past, I've tended to spread around how I seek out help. Like, I don't depend on any one person. There's certainly certain people, like, I've got a couple of brothers who, they will always be there for me no matter what, like 100% available for me. Well, you know, let's say 90% or whatever. But yeah, but I tend to spread it around so, so nobody is bearing too much of the load, because it's not easy, it's not easy for other people supporting someone who's going through trauma, like, because it affects them too. Like Pete, the guy who owns the property, like he kind of caught the brunt of the trauma because he was the first person I contacted. So he had me like in absolute terror and panic, because I was just needing help. I was trapped in my bus. I didn't think I could get out. Like, it was a terrifying situation. And so but he was far away. And so, he's in panic too, just imagine how much was going through his mind. So my terror affected him and everything. And I know when with different friends, like, with their responses, like they've responded with almost as much shock as what I felt, that they just couldn't. And if you're listening to this, you might have felt the same thing. You might have been, felt the same shock that I felt, which, is kind of unusual. So we're very empathetic, and we can feel what other people feel, like when there's crying in a movie, I'll cry generally, but I catch it, someone's talking to me about how their cat died, and they're crying, and I'll be crying too, like, we're very empathetic and everything. So we have to be acknowledged, like, to not pour out our emotions and expect anyone to bear it for us. Like, if someone wants to give me a hug and be present with me, that's wonderful. But, I take my own responsibility to, receive the nurture and then just, bring myself back to balance. I don't want to, it's just finding this balance between, honoring your needs, but also not allowing yourself to sort of fall into this deep bind of a pattern, being attached to, what you're experiencing, being attached to the trauma episode, or being attached to the anxiety. Like, I'm very consciously processing, the fear of trees and everything. Like, I'm going up to different trees, depending on their size, and just being with them and hugging them, and then, just not running when I have to go underneath a big one or whatever. Like, I'm just sort of slowly challenging myself to sort of not be irrational about it. However, the one that is going to fall, like, the one that is going to fall, that I won't go there, because I know it will fall. It's just like, it's a physical reality. So I don't think that's irrational. I think that's just safety. So so anyway, I think that's it. Yes. So just to be aware of the waves of within the self, that to allow them to sort of soften out and everything, to allow yourself to sort of, not get pulled into like a psychological cycle of being attached to it and everything, but also not pushing yourself to not allow what's coming through you as well. And to recognize that other people, as the waves soften, they, let them soften into their own lives. They've got their own sense of reality and their own worlds, and just allow them to move back into that. Like, so gently.